Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be with all of you today. So I'll share with you some of the work we're doing both at Sensible City Lab. It's a lab I run at MIT. We're based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. We had the privilege of seeing some of you who visited earlier this year. And then in Cambridge, Massachusetts, with a small lab in Singapore. And then also our design office, which is based in New York and in Italy. So we're passionate about a lot of the things we're talking about today, which is the convergence of digital and physical. Like 20 years ago, it was about digitizing physical space. All the companies that started at the time, think about Amazon, Google, and so on, were actually taking physical space and digitizing it. But today we're in a different space. We are in a condition of convergence between physical and digital. It's about the internet becoming Internet of Things, and hence allowing us to change the way we interact with the space around ourselves. We're passionate about cities, but but many of the same technologies, sensors, what we just heard about the farm, many of the same technologies are the technologies that we can use also on the farm, or we can use in a supermarket, or in many other parts of our lives. We look at Internet of Things. The application is, if you look at production, is what people call Industry 4.0, or the fourth industrial revolution. If you think about buildings, it's smart buildings. If you think about the farm, is what we just heard. So it's just different ways to look at how this convergence is changing our interaction with the environment we live in. And as I was saying, we're looking at this with different operations with our design office, our lab, and a few startups around the world. Now, today I was asked to share with you some of the work we've been doing related to supermarkets and how we sell things. And clearly, there's no doubt that digitization and especially convergence of digital and physical is changing radically the way we buy things. And that's a report by Credit Suisse that came out a little over a year ago. The estimates that 25% of US shopping malls may close in the next 5 years. That's a huge amount of land that's going to be freed. It's in the United States, and we are seeing that in Boston. Every day you pass by a shopping mall that's shutting down, is being converted into something else. And what are the reasons is exactly this convergence of digital and physical. First of all, Amazon and online shopping. But then Amazon recently bought Whole Foods. Whole Foods in the United States. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Sean. Sorry, too much traveling. And Whole Foods, as you know, in the United States was acquired by Amazon. So it's actually the digital side converging with the physical one. And then if you'd asked me a few years ago, would you still go to Whole Foods? I probably would have said yes. It's great to go to Whole Foods. It's like a market. You look at things. You can touch the products. You can smell them and so on. And then this thing started. And now a lot of people are using it in the United States, which is basically somebody shopping for you. No extra cost. And somebody's shopping, so you can place an order at 5 p.m. You got a shopper who's a supermarket, will text you if something is missing, saying whatever, there's no blueberry yogurt, would you like strawberry yogurt or whatever, and then we'll deliver it before dinner. And so I realized that now 9 times out of 10, I'm actually using Instacart instead of going to Whole Foods. So all of this shows that there's going to be incredible change, and incredible change is also a great time of opportunities or trying new things. So I wanted to share with you some of the experiments we've been doing in this space, in particular with our design office. The first one, and our friends at Accenture will talk about this also later after my presentation, is something we did at the World Expo in Milan. Expo Milano is the World's Fair. There was a very interesting also Australian pavilion there, presence from countries all over the world. 2010 was in Shanghai, 2015 in Milan, 2020 will be in Dubai. We're probably going to do some work there as well. But in Milan, it was interesting because the theme of the expo was feeding the planet. It was about producing food, about cooking food, and of course also about selling food. So the head of the expo asked us, well, could you design a space to show how a supermarket could be tomorrow? And again, every expo in the past has had a place called a Pavilion of the future. So that's the brief they gave us. And it told us to focus deliberately on the supermarket. So we were given this place that was at the core of Expo. Next to us was the British Pavilion, the Spanish Pavilion, with the 2 pavilions you see there. Now, I need to tell you something. As a designer, I don't take responsibility for the shoebox. The shoebox was given to us. But we could do anything we wanted inside the shoebox or outside. And again, to try to explore with how the way of selling products might change. The other thing is that the Expo also had an RFP and selected one of the largest supermarket operators in Southern Europe to help with the pavilion, which means that this was both a pavilion. You know, at the World's Fair, you got pavilions where people go to learn something, but it was also a real supermarket. So you could really shop, but also try new experiences with products. Now, so we knew what we did not want to do. We knew we didn't want to do this. That's a beautiful picture by Andreas Gursky, a great German photographer. But if you look at this picture, it's kind of the alienating image of the supermarket of the 20th century. Our inspirations was from different sources, including an Italian writer. It's quite well-known Italian writer called Italo Calvino. And Italo Calvino has a character in a few of his books called Mr. Palomar. Mr. Palomar is a guy who's a little bit aloof, a little bit provincial, and one day Mr. Palomar goes to Paris into a cheese shop. You know those beautiful fromagerie, cheese shops you got in Paris? And then Calvino starts describing how he starts looking at every piece of cheese and trying to look at the stories behind every piece of cheese. And little by little, the shops becomes for him like a magic place. So Calvino says, behind every cheese, there's a pasture of a different green under a different sky. Actually, I was thinking about similar things when I visited some of the beautiful farms here in Australia. You know, I traveled a bit to Rockies and other parts of the country, and so I think, you know, when you think about it, how you can, you know, what you're producing is what brings something amazing from a part of the country. Again, as he says, a pasture of a different green under a different sky. And then the shop is a museum. Mr. Palomar visiting it feels as he does in the Louvre. Behind every displayed object, the presence of the civilization that's given it form, it takes form from it. So this idea that basically products can tell us their stories and they can inform the consumer to make better decisions. And of course, it's not a new question. The idea to try to bring this in a supermarket is something many people try to do. For instance, Tesco. As you know, Tesco is a big supermarket chain, originally from the UK, but now active all over the world. Try this. This was in Seoul. Actually, if you look carefully, you see this is in the subway in Seoul. You see people getting inside the subway. And the idea was, you know, take a phone, you scan a product, you learn about the product, and then you buy it. But if you look at this, again, it's a bit alienating. It's yourself with a screen behind. You know, it's not fun. And this lasted for a few months, and then, you know, they discontinued it. Our idea was, can we actually bring something like this to life? And if you look at this, look at the amazing richness of interaction between people and products, or people and people through products that you have in a traditional market. So the way we tried to do it at the World's Fair was, first of all, we thought it was important to have everything around tables. You know, the table is a beautiful interface. It's by nature a collaborative interface. As humans, we've been using tables for thousands of years to eat together, to share things, to sell things. And on the top of the table, we put a number of sensors that basically detect people as they approach the table. And it is simple that, you know, if you approach, you know, if you go next to some products, you can still buy them like you buy them today. A couple of seconds, you take something, you put it in the basket. But if you got 5 seconds, you can learn a bit more about that. Or if you got 15 seconds, maybe you see images of the farm from where the product is coming from. And you do it in a very seamless way, just by interacting with it in the same way you would interact in a normal way. So the way we designed the supermarket was a bit like a theater. You see steps, so you would enter from here, you see the video in a moment, and then you go down. We like the idea from the top, you will see all the products in one go. And these different layers of information, the physical layer, the products, and then you got the digital layer with information about them, and then, you know, also aggregated information here. Now, the interesting thing, as you all know, is that now when you do online shopping, a key thing is actually monitoring clicks. So you see how people click on something, and then also you can measure conversion rate. So sometimes you see people click on something, they're interested, they don't buy in the end, so, you know, maybe the price is too high or there's a problem in that conversion. Now, by doing this, you also measure by looking at how people approach products, almost clicks. Clicks go from digital to physical space. So here at the top, you see the equivalent of monitoring the clicks. What are the products that people are buying most? You know, you can have special offers, and then you can see them there. So that's like an aggregated analytics, which is similar to what people do today in digital space, but had never been done in physical space. Well, this was the Build supermarket at the World Expo. It actually was very successful, one of the most successful pavilions in terms of public. It won a number of design prizes. You see here all the products on tables. We also played with robots, and I'll show in a moment, for reshelving and so on. You see the different layers of information here. So, you know, again, as I said, the physical layer and the different digital ones. I'll add one that I didn't talk to you about before, is the one at the end. You know, somehow when you combine all this information together, like all the information we saw before that's collected from the farm, it's quite beautiful. You got this kind of representation in real time of what's happening, in this case in the supermarket, with things coming from all over the world, moving through the world, getting to the supermarket, and again, being distributed inside a community. In the case of Expo, going away back into the world somehow, with people buying things and taking it back to their country. So somehow, you know, this kind of visualization of the supply chain is data that has a lot of potential value. Here you see people actually playing with the products. Kids loved it. You know, they would jump from one to the other and see this accordion of information opening up in front of them, you know, like you see here. And as it was mentioned before, you know, you can have very simple information. I mean, it was mentioned before about products. You know, you can just say about carbon footprint and so on. You can have information about, you know, but then the more you play with it, you know, so this was as soon as you touch something, a couple of seconds, this pops up. Again, if you want, you look at it. If not, you can just buy it normally. You could say that the system is backward compatible. But then here, basically, if you play more with it, then you can actually get more information about the farm, about the cattle, about the product in general, and so on. So I'll show you a few videos about this. This was a kind of a short teaser. And actually, two little stories to share with you. The first one is actually the supermarket operator who was running this at the World Expo. As I said, one of the biggest chains in Southern Europe called Coop. They know very well the market and had estimated how much they would sell at the Expo. It turns out that they sold much more. Then their revenues were much more, I think more than double than what they predicted initially. And, you know, and they saw this as something like, you know, once you tell more stories about things that, you know, automatically you can have more informed consumption, but also, you know, people will be interested in trying out something that they hadn't tried before. So that was kind of a rather interesting finding from this. The other thing that I thought was very interesting is that if you think of what has happened over the past 20 years in many different industries, think about wine. You know, I grew up in Italy before moving to the UK and then the US. And I remember, like, you know, 25 years ago, wine in Italy, you know, was sold in a narrow band of price. There wasn't an extreme differentiation. And then what has happened since then, that has copied a little bit what also the French have been doing, the Australian, the New Zealand, and all the producer, has been really you want to be able to say more about the quality of a certain wine. You need to be able to have information, digital information, like what Vivino today tells you with a little app about the quality of the wine and so on. And then with that, you're able to explain much better the quality. And then quality means much more differentiation in terms of price. So I don't have the data here with you, but what we've seen in many industries is that basically the range between the top tier and the lowest tier, you know, that range has exploded. And it has exploded because digital information, allows you to tell the difference between different products. And it seems to me that what is happening also in your industry is very similar. You know, I think, for instance, we get now in the US, we get a lot of special beef from Australia, including there's Wagyu with certain price tag, and, you know, and then you can differentiate it based on many different things about, you know, if it is grass-fed or not, and so on. So the more you can tell the story, the more you can actually build on the strength of a product, and the more that strength, that uniqueness can also be transformed into value you capture. So I want to share this because, you know, this was one of the lessons learned at the supermarket, especially with other things where this big differentiation has happened over the past few decades, including wine. So there were a few tables with wine, and that was working very, very well to tell the story. If you look outside, if you haven't played with it, there's, again, a small mock-up of the same thing that was done at the Expo, adapted here with data and information from the local products. And you see there's also with wine, and there's with meat. Another quick video of a slightly longer video with the experience inside the supermarket, but, you know, just expanding on what I just said.
Designed by Carlo Ratti for Expo Milano, the Future Food District is a thematic area that explores the impact of digital technologies on the production chain. A lab and living museum where people can experience a new way to shop. The Future Food District overturns the traditional supermarket layout. Products are organized on large tables. Like a traditional market, the horizontal landscape becomes a floor for conversation. The buying space becomes a meeting place once more. Every product has a story to tell. Through a simple hand gesture, products reveal augmented information about their stories, properties, and paths. This in turn promotes more conscious consumption patterns, fostering new modes of exchange between users and sellers. Through the use of technology, we can achieve a new level of connection between people and food, a more ethical and transparent production chain. The integration of advanced automation technologies generate unexpected synergies. Yumi, the world's first truly collaborative dual-arm robot, was unveiled at the supermarket. Future Food District forecasts a possible future scenario where technology can help us reconnect with the production chain, changing our relationship with food and with our fellow citizens.
All right. So, this is what we did in 2015 at the World Expo. This also led to a patent. Again, then Accenture will talk more about they did a lot of the implementation there and also here outside. This was actually, again, with Coop and Accenture, was last year the first commercial supermarket open using a similar technology, the same technology. So this was in Milan last year. And I want to share with you a couple of additional things about really how data and information can change the way we shop and can give consumers lead consumers to more informed consumption. The first thing is another project we did last year, and that was at a new food park, you could say, that's in Italy called Italy World. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with Italy, spelled like that, but Italy has been like a big success story over the past 10 years. The idea was very simple. The idea started actually in Turin, one of the cities where we have one of our offices. It started with the idea of combining like a market, the experience of a market with a lot of products, with actually a restaurant. So the idea is that you go to the market, you can also eat and try the meat. You got different islands where you can have meat or pasta or fish and so on. And you can go there for both reasons. And it creates a lot of beautiful synergies. First of all, actually the fact that you see the food being cooked and prepared gives you an idea about what you might want to buy. The things you have there on display, maybe at one point, and in supermarkets there's always a lot of waste. A few days before, if you've got something which is there, you might want to use it then at the eating place on the restaurant side. So you have synergy between the market where the food is and where you cook it for customers. And it creates a very nice and vibrant experience. Now, if you think about this, one thing that we will not be able to digitize, never be able to digitize, is in this case, the physical experience of being there, of touching, of eating, and so on. And that's why actually food F&B is what is replacing a lot of space in shopping malls. Just because that is something that can only happen in physical space. So anyway, this was a new model. It started in Italy, in Turin. It's having right now enjoying a huge success in the United States. Boston opened a year and a half ago. New York, there's 2 places. I believe they told me that last year, I don't know if this is still true, that in New York it was the highest revenue per square foot after the Apple Store on Fifth Avenue. So it has been a big success in the American market. It's being copied as well. And then what they did last year, they opened a bigger format, which is called Italy World, which is like almost like a food park. And so if you go there, it's a big place. Again, you got the same idea, but on a bigger scale. And you got also animals there, so you can go there, you see a farm. There's everything, you see the whole chain. So the idea is bringing it into the supermarket also physically, the experience of what comes before you harvest or the products or you produce what is being sold. And here we did the 2 projects, and one I want to share with you, which is also going to grow food in the supermarket, allow people to do it themselves. We like the idea, I also grew up on a farm in northern Italy, and I think one of the most beautiful things is that, you do something, you're growing something. This can work both with vegetables or with cattle, but, basically every day you go and check how things are going and how things are changing. What we're doing with sensor, the beautiful thing is you do it just by having a walk on the farm. And so here we wanted to transform that for people who would go and visit Italy. Not everybody has the opportunity to live on a farm. So the idea was that you can actually go there, contribute to some of the planting. This is hydroponic. There is water underneath. It grows this just about salad that then, you can plant it. And actually, as you're moving through the place, you see things that were planted 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 15 days before. So when you're moving through space, it's like moving through time, and you see the salad, as it grows. And at the end, you can harvest it and eat it, and either take it home or, eat it over there and so on. And so it was a way to kind of bring almost in a very small space this experience that we all have had of, being on a farm. And also, by scanning with a QR code the seeds you plant, then you can actually check them. The seeds, as we saw before, the cow who was sending a text message to you later, and as we saw in the video before, in these ways, you can actually monitor the things you planted and how they're changing day by day. So again, wanted to try with digital and physical to give this experience of the farm that goes into the supermarket. Now, this was a very small place and for growing salad, but I think there's a lot that could be learned tomorrow of how really the amazing experience of where products are coming from, which is what you're all familiar with, can actually bring value by being transmitted to consumers and helping then to build on the strengths of what you all do. In the remaining 2 minutes, I want to share with you something else that's a bit unrelated in terms of application, but very related in terms of technology. And that's about developing little tags that track things and can track animals, and that's already what happens on many farms. But also they can become so inexpensive, they can track every small parcel that actually sent out is from the farm, is every piece of product. So they become active tags. And we started with a different application in mind here, but I just wanted to share it with you because, again, the technology is very, very relevant to a lot of the things that are being discussed today. And in this case, we actually wanted to answer a very different question, which is a question related to waste. And if you look at this computer here on the table today, you know everything about it. But then when you stop using it, you throw it away, you know very little. And sometimes e-waste ends up where it shouldn't. A lot of e-waste from the United States shipped illegally to Asia, from Europe to Africa. So we designed this little tag that works on the cell phone network. And then it's like a miniature cell phone. But what it does is simply calculates location and then reports it back. So if you want, it's like a cell phone that has to have to be very smart so that the batteries can last for a long time. In this case, they can last for many months. And then the operation it has to do is not like a cell phone to transmit huge amount of data, but simply to get location in a very smart way using little energy to send it back. Now, in this case, we want to have a tag, given that we were tracing things that were being thrown away, we were happy with having a tag that would last just a number of months, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 months. But today we're at the point where you can do tags like this that recharge themselves, either with movement. As you know, when you put it on cows, it's on cattle or on animals, it's with a small photovoltaic. So again, what we can do is really get the ability to track and to trace in an unprecedented way. What we did here, we did the first deployment in the city of Seattle. So we had 500 volunteers, came with 3,000 pieces of trash. We put a little tag on all of them. Anything from banana peels to e-waste. And then after tagging all of this, we started following it. So here you see 3,000 objects in Seattle, the day of deployment. After a few days, you see some of the main landfills next to Seattle. But actually a big surprise, how stuff started to travel. Sometimes in crazy, unpredictable way. Look at the trace that went all the way to Chicago, changed its mind, and went back to California. And it's still moving after 1 month and 2 months. We thought the Faraway Symphony was the right music. So, as I say, we use this for a totally different application, but I thought it was important because basically if you can put tags on trash to follow it, in the world of tomorrow, we can put tags on everything. And again, you're already putting tags on animals, and that can help a lot to monitor them and understand their health and so on. But you can think about the future where actually every single piece of meat or every product coming out of the farm can be tagged. And then we can actually know everything about it. And so I think we need to start thinking about that because that will bring, again, a lot of changes, a lot of disruption, and probably also a lot of opportunity of how we can actually be much more selective in deciding as consumer then to pick one thing or another thing, as we know everything about its production, past, and so on. So I want to finish with this, and I look forward to the conversation now with all of you. If you want to follow us, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlo.